Hello and welcome to Cheshire Audio. Now this is going to be a speaker review. I was going to say I haven't done one for a while, but I think I think I've done a few recently, so scratch that. Literally I've got 3 hours left before the shop closes and I'm away for a week next week, so I thought I'll do one now, just so there's not too much of a break between videos really. And this is one that I've been wanting to do for a while. I've actually said on camera that I've been intending to do this one, and it's been going on and on and on. What I want to talk about are Neat Majistras, which are sort of mid-range, in the sort of neat range, I suppose. Quite small, but massive sounding speakers. Very clever design, which I think before we actually look at the Neats and sort of talk about sort of features and how they work, I just want to sort of talk about speaker design and how difficult it is to produce something which gives you big scale and clarity, all the things that everybody wants. It's not an easy task. It's not something that you can sort of knock together a cabinet and make it work. I mean, generally, if you want a lot of bass, you need a big cabinet and a big driver. And it's basic physics. That's how it works. If you want to do that in a small cabinet, then you have to get clever with it. Conversely, with treble, there's many ways of getting really good treble. Spending more on drivers is the main thing. The more expensive the driver, the better. The cheaper drivers, manufacturers seem to try and fix it by using complicated crossovers, and they try and even things up or whatever, which tends to kill dynamics and kill clarity and whatever else. So the better the driver is, the more likely. There's all sorts of things going on. So the ultimate, or generally the ultimate, I mean there's some exceptions, with treble is to use ribbons, but ribbons are very difficult to integrate into a speaker design. So when you're using a coaxial bass unit, it doesn't always come off, and a lot of manufacturers have done it because of the wonderful treble response you get, but the designs have never quite sort of gelled somehow, they're never quite sort of held together. And this is what I think is remarkable about the Majistras, because ribbon treble unit integrate beautifully with the bottom end. They've not made it so easy for themselves with the bass, because with the bass loading they're using the Isobaric principle. And in the past, I'll explain that in a second, in the past Isobaric's been used by other manufacturers. I mean, I think Linn were the first ones, I might be wrong on that, I think Linn were the first to actually use Isobaric loading in a domestic speaker. And that is very difficult to integrate as well. I don't know if people remember the Linn Isobarics and Linn Saras. Unless you drove them with massive amplifiers, they did sound very coloured and the bass always sounded separate from the rest of it somehow, almost like a sub was attached. They could sound really, really good, but there was something not quite working. What did work was bass extension, and they were amazing at it. So there is something there with the principle, but it's just making it work and making it integrate. Magistras, I think, in every respect, have mastered. They mastered the ribbon treble unit, they've mastered the Isobaric loading. I was going to explain about Isobaric loading, wasn't I? I have talked about this before in other videos, because when we talked about the Neat Explorer, which was also an Isobaric loaded speaker. But how it works is, if you think about a speaker cabinet, the bigger it is, the more potential to get bass there is. It's just, again, it's physics. It's how it all works. Don't ask me. Don't ask me. I'm not a speaker designer. But the bigger the cabinet is, the easier it is to get with bass extension, bass dynamics, and that sort of thing. What Isobaric does is kid the front driver into thinking it's in a much bigger cabinet than it is, and they do that by having a second driver behind the first one, which are both getting the same signal. You've got a sealed enclosure around the space between, and the rear driver is firing into another enclosure, sometimes sealed, sometimes ported. I think with Majistras it's ported. So these drivers are working together like this. Now this front driver is seeing a pretty much equal pressure behind it as it moves. So it's not, in a small cabinet, as it moves back it will compress the air behind it, and it limits its performance. Because it's moving together, for all intents and purposes, the front driver is seeing an infinite cabinet, because as it moves in, the driver behind it is moving away. So you do get tremendous bass extension from Isobaric. And what Neat seem to have achieved is an isobaric loading principle in a speaker that is integrating perfectly with the treble. And I think it's amazing. It really is. I mean, all their speakers just seem to pull it off. I can't think of anybody else who's done that, really. So, yeah, hence the review, really, because I thought these were worth talking about. In a second, I'll turn the camera around and we'll have a proper look. But what I found with them is the top end is just so clean and clear. Things like cymbal work and percussion is particularly good. Vocals are held together very well, and that is generally a sign. If you've got a speaker which the two drivers aren't really integrating very well, you tend to hear it in the vocal because your ears are very attuned to vocal. It's a sort of human, evolution thing, really. But we're very attuned to vocal. If there's anything wrong there, you tend to hear that first. And the Magistras are particularly good on vocal, very, very realistic in the midband. But then you get this tremendous bass extension, which it takes you by surprise a bit, because basically the cabinet, I'll show you in a sec, the cabinets are sort of this kind of size. There's medium-ish size stand mount, really. So to get that kind of extension from a speaker of that size is something else, really. So anyway, on that note, let's turn the camera around and we'll have a look at a pair of Magistras, or a single Magistra out of a pair, to be more precise. Actually, before we have a close look at these, I just thought I'd just stand at the back of the room and just to give an idea of scale, really. This room's about 18 feet long, and they're sitting on solid steel stands, which are about 21 inches high, I think, something like that. They really suit the solid steels, actually. Well, they're not a cheap stand, but they're really, really well engineered and really stable. And there's a whole load of speakers that really work well on them. Available in the satin white as they are there, and black, and they do like a raw finish, which is just the solid, literally this bare steel. You can see all the wells on it, which should actually look better than it sounds. It looks really good, that. So yeah, not a big speaker at all, really. I mean, these are in like a walnut, American walnut. Treble unit, I can't remember which one it is, but it certainly works really well. See, they're sort of sculpted in at the side, and they've got a sort of almost like a felt surround, which I suppose will be for any like spurious reflections or whatever, so it'll stop any sort of weird phasing effects you might get from the treble unit. Bass unit, again, I don't know which bass unit it is, I can't remember. But all their drivers are always fairly high level. They don't skimp on drivers at all, really. They're neat. So they are pretty heavy. I think they're about 11 kilos each or something. So they're not a light speaker. But then again, we've got a very heavy gauge cabinet. There's a sort of cabinet within with another driver in there. So they're not going to be a light speaker by any means. So yeah, you feel like you're getting your money's worth out of them, really. So yeah, good looking speaker. I mean, they also do the orchestra, which is like a floor standing version of this, which I've had quite a bit of success with, and it's a bigger sound again, but probably not quite as easy to place in rooms as the little Magistras are. And the part of the range called Strata, so which includes Ministras, Extras, Magistras, and then the orchestra. So there is a bit of a range of these, and they're all isobaric. They're all ribbon treble unit. I haven't heard the bottom two in the range. I haven't actually had in the shop yet, so I'll be quite interested to hear those. But generally, yeah, I'm absolutely loving these. I think Neat should be proud of these, to be honest. Really good. What I'll do actually now is I'll just turn this one round so we can have a look at the back panel. There's not an awful lot going on the back panel, to be fair, but let's have a look anyway. Yeah, okay. So back panel, like I say, not an awful lot going on these. Obviously got the rear port and got single wire terminals on the back, which are bare wire, spade, or 4mm socket. Decent quality connectors as well, really. They do need a bit of space. I mean, obviously they're rear ported, so they're better if you can give them a bit of air to breathe around them a little bit, really. I don't think these are as fussy as some. I mean, I sort of expected these to need to be right down the room, but they don't. They seem as though, it's the one on this side, that's about as far in this room, which, to be fair, has got a bit of a weird acoustic. Most things need to be away from the wall in here, but yeah, like I say, I've had speakers having to come right out here, way beyond where the Magistras are. So they don't seem to be ultra fussy positioning-wise. I think a lot of that will come down to how well driven they are. I think, like a lot of isobarics, These aren't, it's not an efficiency issue, but these are about 88 dB, so they don't need loads of wattage particularly, or actual power from an amplifier in that respect, but they do need an amplifier which perhaps the power increases as the impedance drops, because I suspect, I mean, these are rated about 4 ohms, I suspect the impedance might be a little bit, might waver a little bit at sort of lower frequencies, a bit like things like the Isobarics and Saras did, where I think Saras would drop down to a couple of ohms. So you probably need something fairly capable with these, but that's, I mean, there are £3,500 pair of speakers as of August 2022. So at that sort of level, you're going to have something fairly meaty to drive them anyway, really. So yeah, like I say, Magistras. Love the Magistras, really good. So turn the camera around. And I actually just wanted to show something else as well before I go any further. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I'll just do this in at the end. You can tell when I'm sort of running out of time because I start to get more and more haphazard as I go along. Front baffle is actually slightly sort of semi-isolated from the main cabinet on these. They have like a membrane between the two pieces, and the drivers are fastened to the front baffle, and the cabinet, which is where all the resonance may or may not happen, is separated out, so you're not going to get this as much transmission of resonance between the two halves. So that probably accounts for a lot of the clarity and the treble response and that sort of thing. It's got to help. So yeah, another bit of genius, really. Anyway, finally let's turn the camera around. So hope you like that. Neat Magistras. Like I said, I've been meaning to do this one for a while. I've always liked Neat speakers, and I think one of the things about them is I think that may or may not have a bearing on this, but Bobby's actually a very good musician. I've got a couple of his CDs downstairs, and it almost comes across in the designs of the speakers. There's a musical sort of coherence about them somehow, and they just seem to, yeah, they're just very good at portraying performances and that sort of thing, which is quite a rare gift. There's not many speaker designers over the years, I don't think, perhaps like Joe Ackroyd and people like that over the years, who seem to have quite got a grip of that somehow. But yeah, the Magistras have got it in sort of spades, really. They work really, really well. So yeah, thanks for watching. Give us a like and a subscribe. I'll see you in a future video when I'm back off my holidays in about a week. So yeah, thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye-bye.